Alright, welcome back, Poker Fam. It is Leo. We are back once again here. Sorry for the brief hiatus. I've been really focused on my family and just getting my ducks in a row. But we are back with another interesting vlog. In this session, we actually pay a visit to a different poker room here in Dallas, Texas. This is a pretty big milestone for Dallas. But before you forget, don't forget to like and subscribe before you bow away. We'd really appreciate it. In this session, we head to Texas Card House in Dallas, Texas, off Harry Hines. What can I tell you about this room? This room is action-packed. Tons of money being tossed around. You have a combination of your loose aggressive, tight aggressive players. You got some professionals playing here, and you got people with $2,000 stacks at a 1-2 table. So we're pretty excited to get into this session. This is our first time playing here at Texas Card House. I'm sure we'll have future vlogs here. Really nice look, really nice get up. We decided to go ahead and buy in for $300. Our main opponent in hand number 1 is named Senor Rubber Gloves, and you'll see why later on. We are in the big blind with Ace of Clubs, King of Clubs. We raise it up to $15 and get 2 callers. Flop comes out Ace 3-3 with 2 hearts, so we have top pair, top kicker. With there being a flush draw on the board, we decide to lead out for $25. Under the gun decides to fold, let his hand go, and it gets back to the button, who decides to make the call for $25 as well. And as you can see here, that's why we call him Senor Rubber Gloves. With $95 in the pot, we go heads up to the turn. The turn comes out the Queen of Hearts, not our favorite card. Any 2 hearts now gets there. We decide to check, and our opponent quickly checks back. The river comes out the 7 of Hearts. So pretty bad run out for us. Any heart beats us at this point. So we look at our hand one more time for some reason, and we actually think about bluffing. So we decide to assemble a bet, and we were going to bet out $50. Keyword was. We thought about it. We said, you know what, we're going to bluff our opponent off this hand, and instead we check back. And sure enough, he shows pocket jacks with the Jack of Hearts and takes it down. Big mistake on our part. We should have gone with the bluff. I really feel that he would have possibly folded had I had put that bet out, so definitely a mistake on my part. On to the next hand. Second hand of vlog number 3, we get dealt pocket queens. This is the 3rd best hand in poker. We are in the button position. When it gets to the low jack decides to bump it up to $10. We decide that we want to raise it, so we mid-click it to $20. And the small blind decides that he wants to come along as well. So we are now going 3 ways to the flop. The 2 opponents that I'm up against right now, they're probably the best players at the table at the time. Based on conversation I've had with them, they definitely know how to play the game, and they definitely know how to put players into tough positions. So this comes into play in this hand. 3 ways to the flop. Flop comes out King of Diamonds, 4 of Clubs, 3 of Spades. Small blind decides to check. Low jack checks, and we decide to go ahead and check behind as well. We want to see if we can improve on the turn card. Turn card does not help us, brings out the 5 of Spades. Now there is a flush draw and a potential open-ended straight draw as well. So we need to proceed cautiously. Our opponent actually leads out, low jack leads out for $30. We tank for a little bit. We're getting a good price to call, 3-1. So basically $30 to win 92. And we decide to go ahead and make the call. Small blind decides to fold. We only call here just because our opponent could easily have a king, ace king, king 10, king 10 suited, king 9 suited. We don't put them on king queen, or not as likely, just because we have 2 cards to the removal of those type of combinations. So we just decide to proceed cautiously and evaluate a river. The river comes out the 7 of Spades. Man, we are just getting done in by the rivers. To make matters worse, our opponent leads out for $40. To me, this screams value. This just screams a value bet. I think he's just trying to make a small bet to get me to call. Sounds like he has a made hand already. Like I said, some sort of king. I put him on a king this whole time. But now I'm thinking maybe king 6 of spades. So maybe he has a straight and also the flush possibility. Who knows? Could have pocket aces too. But I felt like he would have re-raised me. This is a tough one, guys. I really didn't know what to do on this one. I tanked for a while, thinking of anything that I could have that maybe, could help me out. I even looked towards my opponent to see if I can get a read on him, but nothing. So we painfully decide to let this hand go. We actually fold it. So I'd like to hear from you guys. Let me know down below in the comment box whether you think I made a good or bad fold, and maybe just little details into why or why not. So these next 3 hands are actually one recording that I was able to get on the table, and they were literally back to back. As you can tell, we're already roughly around $200, down $100 from our stack. I remember this particular hand getting pocket 6s on the button. It was raised to $20. We make the call. The flop comes out with a 6, and then on the flop, after checks to us, we decide to lead out because there was a flusher on the board from what I remember, and everyone folds. So the first 2 hands here, we're basically building our stack back up. Literally the very next hand, while we're stacking all our chips up, we get dealt king jack offsuit. We are now in the cutoff position, and low jack actually bumps it up to $12. So this is a no-brainer for us. We go ahead and make the call, and the button decides to come along as well. So we end up going 3 ways to the flop. If I remember correctly, the flop came out with a king and a jack, so we end up hitting 2 pair, which is a very good board for us. The low jack checks. We decide to lead out for $15, and the button comes along. I remember leading out once again for $15 because I know the turn card was just a blank card, but I didn't want it to check through, and my opponent folded after thinking for a little bit. So as you can tell here, we are stacking up, and our stack is roughly right about a little over $300, so about $320-ish, somewhere around there. So we're back to what our starting stack was. That leads into this very next hand. Alright, so we are in the low jack. We have queen of clubs, jack of clubs. Pretty good hand to play with. We decide to bump it up to $12 after a bunch of checks. The button decides to come along, and so does the small blind. Under the gun decides to come along as well, and of course under the gun +1. So definitely not the effect that we were trying to do here. We were trying to raise to cut some people out, but obviously I need to raise a little bigger in this particular case. So we end up going 5 ways to the flop. The flop comes out 9 of clubs, 7 of diamonds, 4 of diamonds. After a few checks to me, I decide to check as well. This is definitely a board that I should be leading out on. I definitely don't want to give a free turn card to any of my opponents. So when the jack of hearts hits the turn, I decide to go ahead after a few checks to me to lead out. I lead out here for $30. The button decides to make the call, and when it gets around to the small blind, he tanks for a long time, which I find pretty interesting. To me, this kind of displayed some sort of weakness. He wasn't sure what he had, or he wasn't sure where he was at. I don't know. I know he was talking to like a friend that was passing by, so this plays a little bit of a factor into my decisions later on. But after a while, he decides to go ahead and make the call as well. So now we are 3 ways to the river with $157 in the pot, and the river comes out a good and a bad card at the same time. It is the Queen of Hearts, giving us top 2 pair. does have some potential straight draws, but I would have thought my opponents would bet a little larger if they were, if they had a straight draw, if they had anything of the sort. So I assembled some chips. I decided that I was going to make a bet of $50. So after putting that bet out, the button position thinks for a little bit, and he decides to let his hand go. So when it's on back to the small blind, for some odd reason, he is taking his time. And he's taking his time to decide what he wants to do. He keeps looking at his hand, looks at the board, back at his hand again. And so I'm wondering, like, what is he doing? I still think he's, showing some kind of weakness, but apparently that's not the case. He decides to raise me to 125. That's quite a big raise. I think for a long time, and tanking, what could this guy possibly have? Could he have Jack 9? Could he have a set? He's been playing pretty cautiously this whole time, or passively, I'm sorry. So after a long time of, just thinking of what he could possibly have, I eventually make the call. And sure enough, my opponent shows 10-8 offsuit. I couldn't believe it. It was the perfect run out for him, and he takes a $407 pot down. Looking back at this hand, especially while I was making this vlog, that should have definitely been a fold. He was basically value betting me, giving me a good price to call. So definitely should have been a fold. That was definitely a big mistake on my part, and that's a little bit of a leak on my part, on my game. That's the whole purpose of why I'm doing this vlog. It puts a little perspective into how I'm playing, and these little things that I can work on will definitely help me improve. It's kind of just like, looking back at the tape, kind of a sport analogy there, but definitely something that I'm going to work on and get better. Alright, shaking off that last hand. The next hand we get is the ace of spades, six of spades. We are in under the gun +1. It limps around actually, and we go 6 ways to the flop. Flop comes out king 9-5 with 2 spades, so pretty good flop. We get the nut flush draw and an overcard. So it checks around, and I decide to check it as well. The player who just whooped us with 10-8 decides to raise it up to $11. And we get 4 more callers, so we're going 5 ways to the turn. The turn is the gin card, gives us the 10 of spades, giving us the nut flush. So we decide we want to go ahead and check again to our opponent, hopefully to induce him to bet out again, but in fact he does not. He decides to check it as well. So when the river card comes out, the 4 of clubs, I decide to lead out after a few checks to us. I don't want this to check around again. I want to get some kind of money in the pot. So we lead out for $15. And for some reason, once again, this opponent who whooped us earlier with 10-8 decides to talk to his homies, and we're just waiting for him to make a decision. I don't know if this is part of his strategy or something, but whatever, the dealer finally gets his attention. He decides to make the call, and we show down our hand, and we are good. We win with the nut flush. So on to the next hand. Final hand of vlog number 3, we get ace queen offsuit in the small blind position. We lead out for $15. We get a call from the big blind and from our favorite 10-8 gentleman. 3 ways to the flop, 8-7-6 with 3 clubs. We got the nut flush draw. We decide to check it. Checks all the way down to 10-8 gentleman, who bumps it up to $20. We decide to come along, of course, with our nut flush draw. The turn gives us the 10 of clubs. We hit our flush. So after I check it to the 10-8 gentleman, I'm hoping that he bets out, and instead he checks as well. So we go heads up to the river. The river is the 2 of hearts. We decide to check it to him again, hoping that he bets, but nope, he checks behind, and we show our hand. We are good. Although we lost a pretty good pot against Mr. 10-8 gentleman, it's nice to take these 2 smaller pots from him for sure. So, but all in all, This was a great learning experience for me. This was a good session to help me see a few of my leaks that I can easily work on and become a lot better of a player. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you enjoyed the content, please hit your 2 favorite buttons, the like and subscribe button. Until next time, stay safe and take care.